Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Game of the Week preview. You already know what it is, man. New York Knicks are facing the Chicago Bulls, a long-rivaled foe. We all know about the Michael Jordan era and the 90s Knicks, so you know it's going to be a good one because the Bulls are 4-0, Knicks are 2-2, so this is going to be a good one, especially since this is the beginning of the NBA Cup. And who better to join me to help break this thing down is none other than Will Gottlieb. He covers the Chicago Bulls for CHGO, so make sure to go check out his work there. Make sure to stay locked in. Hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. We're about to talk about the Knicks and the Bulls, baby. Man, feels like we're back in the 90s. What up, Will? How you doing, man? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Thanks for having me on, Alex. I really appreciate it. Sorry about the delay, everyone. It's my fault. My technical difficulties. We were starting 15 minutes late. That's on me.
It's all good. It's all good, Will. It's all good. Technical difficulties always happen, man. It's all good. We're here. We're present. We're ready to talk about the damn thing. Look, it's going to be a good time. People are here. We got Knicks Nation locked in. I know there's going to be some Bulls fans locked in here. That's just how things go. It goes par for the course. Other fan bases come in here as well, just trying to get that banter going. So we appreciate it, man. We look forward to those things. We embrace it. But Will, let's get this thing rocking, man. Let's get this thing rocking. So I got to ask you first. What do you think about the Knicks offseason moves, man? I mean, they got title expectations this year. I just need to know what other people from the outside looking in think about our New York Knicks.
Yeah, I think the Knicks had a kind of a good offseason, I would say. Like, it wasn't obviously the same type of fireworks that you guys had last year with Karl Towns coming in like 2 seconds before the start of the season. I can't imagine what that would have been like. But I think in this Eastern Conference with like the Halliburton injury, with the Tatum injury, the Celtics kind of stripping things down, Damian Lillard now out of the Bucks and them not really looking like true contenders. Like, to me, it was kind of smart to just stay put, not overreact to the opening in the East, maybe shore up a few things. I like Yabusele. I think Jordan Clarkson can help them in the playoffs, and just like get yourself ready for, March, April, May, June. I think that was the right play for the Knicks. So obviously not those same fireworks, but to me, it was just about, getting everybody locked in. The Mikal Bridges contract, maybe a little bit more than I would have loved to spend, but I feel like for the window that you're in right now, you just have to lock in the talent. You got to bring the guys back and try to make this run.
Absolutely not fireworks. It was around moves around the edges, like that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to shore up the bench. I mean, we had the starting five or your top five, however you want to talk about it. You got Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Bridges, OG, Hart. Those guys are still there. Deuce McBride, that's the core six. It's Mitchell Robinson. Core seven, I'll say, from last season, that's mainstays for this year. Yabusele, Jordan Clarkson are good moves. I like Jordan Clarkson just because, he showed a little bit in the last game, and it's taken some time for him to, acclimate himself after playing on a woeful Jazz team for most of his tenure, right? And getting those 20, 30 minutes and doing whatever he wants. So now he's got to rein it in and be a little bit more efficient. But I think giving him more time, it will be another guy that, can create like some shots when Brunson's sitting on the bench. So I do like that move. Yabusele still feeling himself out as well on this team. Same situation. Same situation. He was out in Philadelphia playing a lot of minutes, and you get to kind of roam free. So I like those two additions for the Knicks as well. And look, the Knicks are 2-2 right now. I'm not sure if you're aware about it, but the house is burning down, going off 2-2 to start the season. We should be 4-0 depending on which fans you talk to. And good God, this team's not going far. But I'm not there, man. I'm not there. We got to let this thing gel because it's too early. Exactly, it's too early. You got to let this thing gel. New players, new system, new head coach, Mike Brown. What were your thoughts about the firing of Tom Thibodeau? I'm sure you're well versed in Tom Thibodeau and who he is as a head coach covering the Bulls, and now going from him to Mike Brown. What do you think about the transition?
Yeah, I do really like Tibbs. I mean, I think he always gets the most out of the group that he has. I also understand it from the perspective of like, he's just not playing a deep enough rotation. You're wearing guys down in the regular season. And like, what the Knicks should really be focused on is a deep playoff run. And so you have to prepare for that. I do think he was like a little bit more experimental than people probably gave him credit for. I'm sure it's super divisive in New York with just like people who are, I'm sure, real Tibbs stands, and I'm sure people who got really frustrated with him. That's just kind of like the trend of how Tibbs goes. He comes in, you overachieve with the group that you have, you reset expectations to a much higher level, you run into the same glass ceiling that you can't break through because the team is just not equipped to do that. And so I don't know how, the new coach will come in and change everything. I'm very curious to see what they look like against the Bulls. But I think that there is an element of like trying to diversify the offense a little bit, trying to play with a little bit more depth that could really help them, or at the very least keep them a little bit more fresh for a deep playoff run.
Absolutely. And I mean, to start the season, we've kind of seen that so far for the Knicks, where Mike Brown's willing to go 11 deep, even though we haven't had Mitchell Robinson to start. So going 11 deep with Ariel Hukporti getting some minutes there, Tyler Kolek getting some minutes too for this Knicks team. So we see that depth being played out. He's also mixing and matching lineups. I mean, something that Tibbs rarely, if never ever did, where he was like, all right, this is who the starters are, this is who the bench unit is. He had his kind of little overlay that you could always expect at the same minutes, same time, every day, which you kind of like a routine to get things off when you're trying to create a foundation. But with Mike Brown, there are some lineups that are just so funky out there, and I get it. You want to experiment and see what's going to happen and what you can utilize down the stretch. So it's been refreshing to that extent. And then obviously not having Jalen Brunson be so ball dominant, having him off ball, that's been
Yeah.
a nice change of pace. So that way you don't wear him out as well. So to your point, yeah, there is that change. And obviously we won't know the impact Mike Brown has until we get to the postseason and how far he can take this team with high expectations. Do you think it was the right move to like move off of Tibbs? I know you've seen those type of
Yeah, I
things
feel
happen.
like I feel like I probably would have given him one more year just because like you got to the conference finals and I get it. I understand the perspective, but just with all the connections there, it's very like almost family based with like all the connections with Leon Rose and Jalen Brunson. I just probably would have had a hard time with that, but I do respect the fact that they were willing to do it because again, they have to be thinking about the bigger picture. That's really what matters here. I like your point about it. Not really, you're not going to really figure out if this was a good decision until April or May. So I think that makes sense, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just too much of a tips apologist, but I probably would have waited one more year. But at the same point, then maybe you run into that same outcome where you just can't break through. And this is really the year where it's wide open, right? And so you do kind of have to, like I said, with the roster stuff, not making any big trades. Like maybe this was the big move that they felt could be what separates them from an Eastern Conference Finals team to an NBA Finals or an NBA title team.
For sure. And, it's all about that delicate balance, as you pointed out. Like, you never know when the right time is going to be. But when you look at the Pacers, who are, winless right now, you look at Boston, who, is struggling on and off. You could potentially take advantage of that. Obviously, there's some surprises right now, but it's very early in the season. But who knows, man? We won't know until the end of the season. I'm looking forward to it. But there's a good challenge on the way. You're Chicago Bulls, all right? You're Chicago Bulls with Josh Giddey leading the way. They're undefeated right now. They are 4-0. And I know my boys who are Chicago Bulls fans they're texting me. They're hyped for tomorrow's game because they want to know what's going to happen. I even saw that you tweeted out that they got a good stretch of challenging opponents between Knicks, not it's essentially back to back. I mean, Friday, then Sunday. Then you got Philly, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and then San Antonio on docket for the next couple of games. So, how do you feel about your Bulls team right now being 4-0?
I mean, they're certainly more impressive than I think anybody expected, right? Like a lot of people were talking about like a 2-9 start with just the way that this season is. But you play a Detroit Pistons team who I think a lot of people were excited about, and you really kind of shell shocked them with the pace. I think they're really missing a lot of the spark that they got from Dennis Schroeder and Malik Beasley. And then you've got the Magic, and you beat them pretty handily. That team just like is running through the mud. I mean, they just cannot get anything going offensively. And then kind of the same thing with the Hawks, where the Bulls just came out, beat them pretty good. Obviously, the Hawks were a little bit more cohesive than some of those other teams. And then last night, was it last night? Yes, last night, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan returned to the United Center, and the Bulls got them too. So definitely a pretty surprising start. But I will say the Bulls really, and just like hearing Billy Donovan and the front office and a lot of the players talk about this early on in training camp and throughout the start of preseason season, they really are leaning into this identity that they started to build at the end of last season of playing extremely fast, getting downhill, putting pressure on the rim, getting paint touches, and generating offense that way, trying to stay out of the half court as much as possible, where they don't really
Mm.
have a premier isolation scorer like a Jalen Brunson that they can go to create in the half court offense. So they understand that. They're just trying to avoid it. They're trying to play in transition the entire game. And I think that's really tough for teams to defend. So that's how they've been able to generate four straight wins here to start the season.
Fascinating. So they're trying to get downhill, move it at a fast pace. This is going to be very interesting for the New York Knicks, certainly. And before we get into that, let me salute one of our sponsors, DraftKings. All your favorite NBA players are back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is the place to bet on NBA stars this season. New customers bet just $5 and get 3 months of NBA League Pass. Plus, score $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code KFTV. That's code KFTV. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass, plus get $300 in bonus bets if your bets win. If partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort located in Kansas, pass through a per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA League Pass auto renews until canceled. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Once again, use that code KFTV. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass. Plus, get $300 in bonus bets if your bets win. Once again, promo code is KFTV. All right, we'll just have to do that real quick. Let's get back into what you were talking about. The Chicago Bulls want to move at a fast pace. And I'm just curious how the Knicks are going to handle that with athleticism. I know that Mike Brown is trying to get this Knicks team in an up-tempo offense right now. And for the most part, they've been capable of doing that for stretches of the game. Haven't been able to play all 4 quarters yet. Transition defense has been god awful for this team. But I want to talk about the Bulls transition game just a bit because is that something that you think will be Billy Donovan's like idea like all season long and not try to figure out if you got an isolation score at all or and just like hope for a running and gunning type show?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they are inevitably going to get bogged down in half court. And they are doing a lot more like cutting and ball movement, high screen and rolls into, actions where Vucevic is able to make plays out of the short roll. But like a lot of back cuts from Patrick Williams and Isaac Okoro, and Ayo Dosunmu, and then guys just like swinging the ball side to side and getting into the paint as quick as possible so that they can try to collapse the defense. That's really the goal. And I think it's with the team that they have, given their flaws and limitations, that's really like the best possible solution that I could think of to try to generate points.
Mm.
And so there are certainly times like the other night against the Kings, the second quarter, they had a couple of turnovers. They were giving up points in transition and they started to slide for a bit, but they, for whatever reason, were able to get back to that identity. And that really has been the key for them to get back in these games. And then they won by 12 or so. So I think it's a challenge to like stick through that for the entire season. That's kind of the main thing I'm monitoring is like, how real
Mm.
is this? How much can a team do this? How long can it last? And, if they are able to make the playoffs, is that going to work in the postseason? I don't know yet, but that's certainly how they want to play. And I think they're ready to put that to the test.
Okay, so what would you make of this undefeated run right now that they are going on?
I think it really speaks to that identity that we talked about. They are a team that really knows who they are. They are all very bought in. There's an anecdote from the Magic game where Josh Giddey was on the bench. He was coming back into the game in the fourth quarter for his normal like rotation. He was going to close out, but I would assume he hit a couple of big threes, and so Giddey just told Billy Donovan like keep him in there, like let's keep this thing rolling. And I think that speaks to the team's like willingness to sacrifice for one another, their understanding of the greater good, and how they can all contribute to that. And so this is very much like an egoless team. There's not that star, which obviously has the downside of not having the isolation scoring. But the upshot is that they are willing to make sacrifices for each other. And I
Mm.
think that goes to that Giddy story really goes to show it.
Okay. Now I gotta like dive a little bit deeper because I tap into like all the teams at some point throughout the season. It's still very early on, so I got the Bulls right there with the Sixers in the Eastern Conference. So I'm keeping tabs on because they're young, they're fresh. They're making a surprise right now. But I gotta ask, like, because you talk about not having those isolation scores, but isn't Kobe White kind of like that type of dude to some degree?
Absolutely. I mean, I think he he's one of those unique players that can do it both ways. Like he last year really showed, he was averaging like 30 a game in the month of March. He won Eastern Conference Player of the Month. Not the like most incredible accolade of all time, but like it really was a great stretch for him where he was being that primary guy, but also doing it within the flow of their offense and within the pace that they're trying to play. Problem is, Kobe's been out. He has not played at all in preseason. He's been out for the first 4 games of the season. And we should be getting a reevaluation on him on Monday or Tuesday of next week. He's been
Hmm.
out with a calf injury since training camp. So they've been doing this without Kobe, which is even more impressive. Trey Jones has really stepped up. Giddey has been really solid. Io has been really solid. He came back from a shoulder surgery and has not missed a beat. And so all these guys are really contributing. Vucevic has also been great. So really everybody is just like hitting a ton of shots. They're playing with pace. The energy is great. The vibes are great. And they're just flowing.
Nice. And so, you know, I'm so curious to see how he comes back because would you say that Kobe is like a high like usage type of guy? And like how do you expect that to like mix with Josh Giddey, who I feel like is just, he's a point guard, he needs the rock in his hand to like be effective. How do you feel like those guys will blend as the season goes on and if they're both, because I know Giddey got the extension too, if their careers go on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a general question that I have about Giddy, less so about his fit with Kobe and more just in general. Can he be a player that plays off the ball? Can he be a player that plays alongside other great players? And I do think that there are going to be challenges with that. Like, he's not a great shooter. I think he's like over 40% this year and shot like 47% on threes or something after All-Star break
That's
last year. Obviously,
insane.
that's like ridiculous, not sustainable stuff. But I do think he's like shown a willingness to move off the ball at the cut. They're playing a lot of 2 guard lineups with Trey Jones out there.
Mm,
And just like teams are picking Giddy up full court, he hits it ahead to Trey Jones and they get into their semi-transition game, and they're into their first action with like 20 seconds on the shot clock. That's how they want to live. And I think they're able to navigate some of the shooting concerns by movement in the full court and in half court settings. And so I think when you blend Kobe back in there, one, I think it can work because it worked last year. We saw proof of concept with the two of them playing really well together in March and April. Granted, that was March and April. We'll see how that goes over a real course of a full season. But I do think that both of them are willing to make sacrifices for one another, know how to complement each other. And Kobe especially is so good on and off the ball that I think he's able to really do that at a high level to where you can get the most out of Giddy. But then when Giddy's off the court, you can still really maximize what Kobe can do with the ball in his hands.
okay. Okay. And has there been any player so far that has surprised you in like their development? I know that Kobe has been out and Giddy is kind of like who you're expecting to after you made the trade for him. But is there anybody else, that you would say, oh, this is quite a surprise so far to start the season?
Yeah, it's probably the longest I've gone all year without talking about Modest Buzelis. He's been great. I think he's, shown flashes of somebody who can really be like a face of the franchise type of player. He's far away. I think he's like made great strides from last season. The shot looks a lot better. He's attacking the basket. He's playing really well in transition. The athleticism really pops. He's blocking a ton of shots. You can still see the growing pains though, like when he's trying to create a little bit too much with the ball in his hands. We talked about like the lack of half court scoring when he's like game slows down, somebody finds him and like he's got to create.
Mm.
Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it can be a little sticky. And so I think that's going to be a work in progress. But the signs that he's showing early on in the season are really exciting. And he's really like the first player that I think Bulls fans have been this excited about. A young player, homegrown, drafted, that they feel like can really be like franchise caliber player. I'm not saying he's going to be a star or a superstar, but he's really kind of taking on that face of the franchise, attitude in the locker room and leadership. And it's only year 2, so
Hmm.
very excited to see where he can go this year.
Face of the franchise in year 2 for Matas. That is wow.
Yeah,
You
and
say you
again,
saying you saying over Josh Giddey at this point? Yeah, because
not
look,
to
man,
say,
I'll say this because I know Giddey got a lot of fame after that half court
yeah,
heave against the Lakers.
yeah, and not to say that like I think he's going to be a superstar or an all-star this year. Maybe that happens on the line. I don't know. I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm also not going to like sit here and make any promises. I just think that like within the segment of at least the Bulls fans that I'm like hearing from on Twitter and our YouTube comments, Modest is the number one guy that people are excited about, and so that's kind of more what I mean. Giddy has obviously been great, and I think like the numbers are huge. The big plays, those really stand out. But just in terms of like the guy who I think, at least from the Bulls fans that I hear from, they really feel like Modest is theirs, and in a way that I haven't really sensed for many years, honestly.
Okay, so you got Matas, you got Kobe, you got Giddy, you got Vucevic on this team. You know, you traded Wanzu, you got Okoro on this team. And do you think this team right now, I know it's so early in the season, do you think this team is poised to make some noise later on this year, whether it be getting in the top six and getting a playoff spot, or just, even making the play in and just competing that way to get some, serious like quotation postseason, because it's not really considered postseason action.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the play-in has been something that the Bulls are well familiar with. Last 3 years, they've lost to the Heat in the play-in tournament. So I think they're hoping they wouldn't say it on media day. They wouldn't like say we were trying to make the playoffs. Our goal is to make the playoffs. But I think internally, that's kind of the hope. And I think the way that they're playing, like again, 4 games to start the season is not going to like convince anybody of anything. At
Mhm.
least it shouldn't. But the way that they're playing has been really compelling. The teams that they've beaten, especially the Magic, the Pistons, and the Hawks, all teams that people were really excited about coming into the year. I don't think any of them have fully, formed, found their identity, gelled in a way to where they're playing their best basketball. And so if that happens over the course of the season, maybe the Bulls start to look much worse by comparison. But right now, it feels like I think I predicted 39 wins. I feel like they're still going to be in the like 39 to maybe like 42, 43 is kind of the range that I'm probably moving it up to. If everything breaks right, like that's not what I'm necessarily predicting, but I think that's kind of like best case scenario where they could end up. And this year in this Eastern Conference, like that absolutely could be the 6th seed. So again, I'm not saying I am calling that or I predict that, but I think that has the that sort of potential outcome has become more available to them.
Okay, you heard it here, people. Will Gottlieb saying, "Hey, there's some potential with this Bull team. Start to believe." All right, and shout out to Knicks
Six
Nation.
seed potential.
There you go. There you go. Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in for another game of the week preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Will Gottlieb. He covers the Chicago Bulls for CHGO. So make sure to check out his work there. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boy. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Salute to some of our franchise channel members who are in here right now. I see Stevie Nicks 108. Shout out to you. I see Zach from New York to LA. Shout out to you, my man. Who we got else? Who else we got in here? We got Chili. Oh, sorry, chilled and cool. My apologies. My apologies. Chilled and cool in here. Shout out to you, my man. Do things. What's going on, do things? Happy to see you in here as well. My guy John Talento never misses a show. Appreciate you as well. Shout out to Dorkosaurus, man. Did some great editing for the Knicks Twitter Day basketball tournament that we had this season. So shout out to you, my guy. Shout out to you. All right, man. Let's get into some fun stuff. Let's get into the actual game, Will, and talk about what's going to happen for tomorrow. So you already kind of let it off already with the playing styles and that the Bulls like to move at a fast pace. That concerns me, I'm not going to lie, because the New York Knicks right now have yet to stop a nosebleed when it comes to transition offense. So the last 2 games, Knicks got outscored in transition 38 to 10 against the Miami Heat, and then against the Milwaukee Bucks, they lost the transition battle 21 to 9. So I'm not looking forward to that aspect of the game. Now, I do think it will be good. As a Knicks fan, I do believe that I got to believe in my team that they're going to win. But I'm going to say if there's one area of concern right now, it is, are the Knicks willing and ready to compete with a young and athletic Bulls team? So that one for me is going to be the one that I'm checking in tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's every night for every Bulls opponent. Is like, are they ready to run and can you stop it? I think the other big key, just kind of looking at some of the superficial stats for this, is like the Bulls' 3-point defense has been incredible this year. I think
Mm.
it was 26.6% before the last game. I think it went up to 31%, lowest number in the league. So teams are shooting extremely poorly against the Bulls from three. The Knicks take a ton of threes. The Bulls do not give up a lot of threes. So I'm curious to see who kind of wins that clash. I would imagine the Knicks are going to get plenty of threes up, and if they make them, that's just like if you hit 23s in a game, it's just hard to beat that. And so no matter how fast you run, I think at a certain point, like the luck that the Bulls have gotten in terms of their opponent shooting is going to regress to the mean, and that could happen slowly over the course of the remaining 78 games, where teams like creep up in their 3-point percentage, or it could be like these avalanche games where teams hit 20, 23, 24 threes in a game. And so I'm always kind of, a little bit concerned about the potential for that to happen, especially with a stretch big like Karl Anthony Towns, who I think can really stretch out the Bulls defense in a way that probably makes them pretty uncomfortable.
I mean, this is going to be very interesting because Karl Anthony Towns hasn't really played great, and has
Shooting
struggled
really
so
poorly,
far.
right?
Yeah, he's been shooting poorly. He's dealing with a quad injury right now. He's playing through it, but he hasn't been shooting the ball that well. And even when it comes to attacking the rim and posting up, hasn't been that strong. So I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to get it going against the Bulls. I mean, Vooch is another guy that can shoot the rock. So that's going to be an interesting matchup
And he's
over
been on
there.
fire. He's been awesome. And it's kind of a strange fit with like the way the Bulls want to play. This young team, pretty much everybody is 25 years old or younger. They're running up and down, breakneck pace. And Vooch is out here, age 35, and he's shooting the lights out. He's trailing the play, walking into open threes. But I think the thing that's been the most impressive is his ability to attack closeouts, where teams are concerned about the 3-point shooting. He puts the ball on the deck, and is able to make plays, whether it's for himself or others. And so I think that's really tough to guard when you are closing out hard to a 7-footer and then you're just on tilt behind him. It's really tough to defend.
Well, I'm no 7-footer, but when I play pickup basketball, I play pretty frequently. I just turned 36 last week, and most of the guys I hoop with are somewhere between 22 to like 28. So they're like, "Oh wow, you're that old," and it's like I'm the guy trailing down, like, "All right, man, just pass me the rock, put up a three. All right, man, I'm going to go right back, go jog right back." So I appreciate you,
Hey,
Vooch. So
respect for not retiring, man. I've been retired this year.
Nah, man, gotta love the game, man. Gotta love the game. Like I said, we did a Twitter basketball tournament this summer, man. Had to come correct for that one. We won the championship. It's in CP's office, just sparkling and gleaming in the light. So there we have it.
Congrats.
Thank you. But you talk about the Bulls defense, getting back to the 3-point shooting. The Knicks are putting up a lot of threes. They're averaging about 45 threes per game. The issue is they're shooting poorly. They are ranked 24th right now, shooting about 33% from downtown. So, that's just kind of, let's see what the mean is as the season goes on. But that's kind of like the numbers game when you start shooting a lot of threes. It's like the Boston Celtics, right? Like there's some nights they're just torching the nets, and then there's other nights where it's just clanking. And so the Knicks have been going back and forth between clanking, torching the nets. Who shows up tomorrow, especially against a Bulls defense that's guarding the three well? That is going to be a good question to see. Now, the thing that also intrigues me about this game is how are the Bulls going to, attack or defend the Knicks who want to get into the paint? With Jalen Brunson, now Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, these guys do like to score in the paint. And especially when it comes to second chance opportunities, even Josh Hart who likes to attack out in transition. So that's a big part of what I'm looking at for tomorrow's game as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the Bulls defense has been awesome this year. They're fourth in the league, which is not something that you would predict for a team that's starting Josh Giddey and Nikola Vucevic out there at the same time. But to their credit, they've been really good. I think a lot of it has to do with opponent 3-point luck, as we talked about. And so I'm curious to see if the Knicks are able to sort of make them pay for that. But to the Bulls' credit, I mean, they're executing. I think they're scrambling really well. They're running teams off the line. They're giving up the fewest number of total threes. So it's not just that teams are shooting poorly, but they're taking away those shots and trying to make them put the ball on the floor and get inside the paint, where obviously three is greater than two. Again, we'll see how that works over 82 games. It's such a small sample now that like come in any grand conclusions is probably not advisable. But so far, that's been their recipe. And like I said, I'm curious to see if that works against this Knicks team who has such a good stretch five.
Yeah, and look, like I know somebody's gonna come out here and be like, Alex, Knicks are like dead last in points in the paint. And I know that they're trying, man. We're trying. Karl Anthony Towns is not hitting shots, but we're getting good looks down there. Same thing with Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. So they got to convert them too. I know they're dead last. But I think for this team, based on because Vooch is not necessarily like the rim protector that you'd probably be like fearful like
No.
Giannis, right? Like if you're playing against Milwaukee, you're like, oh my God, there's Giannis. You talk about playing against Miami, there's Bam Adebayo right there. So I think it's going to be different for this one where the Knicks are going to get some looks inside the paint. But conversely, unless Mitchell Robinson plays, I know he was a full participant today in practice. The Knicks are not necessarily great at defending the paint right now either. So if Mitch plays, I expect that to change. If he's not playing tomorrow, then I expect it to be the same thing that we've been seeing, which is the Knicks are right now, where are they? They're actually pretty good at defending the paint, and the Chicago Bulls are also good at attacking the paint. So this is going to be another aspect of the game. Chicago is actually number one right now in the league when it comes to points in the paint. They're averaging damn near 60. Knicks, on the other hand, are defending the paint very well, limiting opponents to about 41 points in the paint. So this is going to be another battleground area for both of these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, so much of the pace thing that the Bulls are trying to do, it comes down to can they get into the paint? Can they collapse the defense, force teams to pull over from the weak side and bring help? And that kind of opens up their ability to attack advantages. And so the pace is going to be a big thing with that. And we'll see how ready the Knicks are for it. It's so crazy to me that teams can read the scouting report, know what's coming, know how fast the Bulls are wanting to play, know that every team in the league is trying to play faster this year, and still the Bulls are able to have success with it. So very interested to see how that goes over the course of 82.
I'm look, I'm like I said, I'm gonna be keeping tabs on all these teams and how they play. Obviously, Knicks are priority, but tomorrow's gonna be a first look to seeing how real these Bulls are. And you
And
know
I
what's
think
gonna
what's interesting is that they've got back-to-back games against each other, right? So
yeah.
we'll see. Like oftentimes, I feel like teams just split those, but like we'll see kind of how the teams adjust to each other after the first game.
Yeah, it feels kind of like a mini playoffs, right? I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
you play a game, you get some time off, and then you play each other again. I feel like the league has been constantly setting us up to have like these back-to-back type playoff series every single year since they've like implemented this. First time I remember is like when it was we had Randall on the team and Lonzo was guarding him, and Lonzo did a good job defending Randall. But I feel like the league it just wants this. Adam Silver just wants to recreate the '90s, and this is what he's doing. So here we go. Welcome to you. Good job by you, I guess, Adam Silver. Welcome. But look, in this matchup, there's gonna be two guys that I'm looking at, man. There's a key matchup here. It's gonna be Josh Giddey versus Jalen Brunson. Now we already know who Jalen Brunson is. This guy won Clutch Player of the Year last year. This guy is an absolute beast when it comes to creating his own shot, getting downhill, being an elite three-level scorer. He did lose some weight this year, so the difference is that he is playing off ball, looking to move a little bit faster, and he's just getting to better open looks, especially when you allow guys like Mikal Bridges, OG to bring up the rock, and they're looking for him just being out there in the quarter and he's knocking them down. So Brunson, a difficult guy to stop offensively. So you know what he's gonna do. Giddey has been, making some headways. He's leading the team in scoring. So I'm curious to see how these two guys match up. And Giddey is just kind of like, to me, I know you mentioned like he's shooting a crazy percentage. He's shooting over 40%. I think he said 45, 47% from downtown. But like he's a gamer to me, man. And sometimes gamers just don't make sense. They just perform and they just do things and you're like, "What the hell? Like this is not who you are like by the numbers, but somehow you just elevate your game based on who you're
Yeah.
playing, who you're going against." And I feel like Giddy's ready to do that when he sees that those type of opponents, just like as we talk about that like that heroic shot. And I only bring it up because everyone clipped that thing up and you see like all these fake announcers just like making jokes about it. But it's stuff like that where you're like, all right, this is going to be a good matchup between these two guys. So how do you feel about that key matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Giddy, like we talk so much about the pace and like the pressure that the Bulls are trying to put on the rim. Like Giddy has really been the one leading that charge and getting into the paint. He basically just like barrels in there and does this spin move or this low pickup, and he's able to either get to the foul line or collapse the defense and spray it out. He's like very effective with this floater. He's just like an unconventional guy, and I think a lot of times people are like they see something and it doesn't look conventional, so they like think it's wrong or think it doesn't work. And I think I have definitely fallen victim to this with Giddy. But like he's just like successful at it. I was comparing it the other day to Tyrese Halliburton with the jump passes. Like every high school basketball coach in America would tell you, like, don't do a jump pass. I'm going to put you on the bench if you do a jump pass. And Halliburton has like made them in vogue, and now people are doing it more. And it like looked weird until he became great at it, and it was like leading to important possessions for them. I think the same kind of thing is happening with Giddy, where he's just like stumbling into the lane and somehow manufacturing points out of it. So he has been really effective there. And I don't know how much the two of them, Jalen and Giddy, will guard each other. Giddy's kind of like especially with Trey Jones out there, he's kind of more of a point forward. He
Mm.
does run a lot of the offense. He has the highest usage on the team. But I think they probably won't match up against one another. I don't know how the Knicks are starting, but I imagine they'll want to put some more size on him to just like pressure him up a little bit and try to prevent some of those drives. But certainly in terms of the actual like narrative of the game, it will come down to those two. And Brunson has always been obviously a Chicago area guy. Like he's always been one to step up against the Bulls and in his hometown area. So always a fun time watching him, and I'm excited to see him tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And, I know Deuce McBride he just reported back to the team. They also reported that today as well. So, if they decide to go with the lineup that they already tried once before, which is a Brunson, McBride, Bridges, OG, and Cat starting lineup, I would see McBride getting the Giddy assignment off the rip just because he's our best perimeter defender. If he doesn't start tomorrow, and then let's say we go with like, I guess maybe even Ariel Hukporti, or if they want to just switch it up and just do something completely different, then I would see Mikal getting that assignment on Giddy. Now, I'm not. Bridges has done a decent job guarding the point of attack, but there's just something about those quick guards that it's tough. And so I hope that McBride is playing tomorrow because I trust him more on the perimeter side than I do Bridges. Not saying that Bridges is a terrible defender, but I feel like
You
those
just like him off
quicker,
ball.
yeah, I feel like those quicker guards just gives him a little bit more of a hassle.
I think Giddy, I mean, he's 6'9", right? So like he has the ability to like take guys down low. He doesn't do it a ton just because it's not like the most efficient offense. But I could see him trying to take advantage of that. I could also see, Bridges really pressing up on him, McBride pressing up on him and just like getting into his airspace and kind of preventing some of that dribble penetration. So I could see that going either way. But the Knicks, I mean, you guys just have so many strong perimeter defenders. Hart, obviously, is he playing? I know there's been some injuries. I'm not sure if
Hart's
Hart will
playing,
be
yeah.
back. So they've got a couple of different bodies they can throw at him. And, the Bulls don't have a ton of size on the wing. Like you don't really have to worry about Okoro. Obviously, Buzelis has been very good so far, but I wouldn't like necessarily worry about throwing my absolute best defender at him. So if it were me, I'd kind of load up on him and Gideon Trey Jones and just try to keep the Bulls out of the paint as much as possible. And whichever defender you think gives you the best chance to do that, that's what I'd go with.
I mean, I can even see OG getting some shots at Giddy as well, just because of
Oh,
the
I forgot
strength.
about OG. That's actually probably the right answer. Just the strength of forcing him out of the lane. And Giddey's not like a great ball handler. He's a lot of it is just using his physicality to get into the paint. And so if you have a guy like OG out there who can obviously, absorb all that contact, that would be probably the best bet.
Yeah, I think the thing is just like who's been in the Bulls starting lineup since Kobe has been out.
It's Trey, Modis, Okoro, Giddy, and Vucevic.
Okay. And so I guess this is where it starts to get interesting because height and weight does make a difference. But if you got, let's see, I could even see a scenario where they just put, McBride on Trey, they put OG on Giddy, they put Mikal on Mattis, and then you got Brunson shading on Isaac because he's not a shooter like that, and then you got your centers just guarding each other. There's a scenario where that could be the
Yeah,
defensive assignment as well.
I think so. And honestly, like the Bulls are going to probably want Okoro on Brunson anyway, right? Because that's their most physical perimeter defender. He does his best work, I think, on smaller guards as compared to sliding up and having to handle bigger forwards. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. I'm very curious to see how this all plays out tomorrow from like a defensive standpoint and how that goes down. Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in for another game of the week preview. With me on the other side is my guy Will Gottlieb. He covers the Chicago Bulls for CHGO. Make sure to go check out his work over there. And hey, we got another sponsor. All right, we got Wayfair. All right, so look, the holiday season is approaching, just right around the corner. Who would have thought? We got Halloween tomorrow. Next thing you know, is going to be Thanksgiving, and then you got Christmas right there. Before you know it, in a blink of the eye, you got Black Friday. And so, hey, Wayfair is the place to shop for all things home, everything from sofas to spatulas, you name it, they have it. And you can get up to 70% off during Wayfair's Black Friday sale. Wayfair also has styles you can't find anywhere else. No generic pieces you've seen 100 times, so you can make your home way more for you. Starting October 30th, today, you can shop Wayfair's can't miss Black Friday deals all month long. Plus, you can sit back and relax with Wayfair's fast and easy shipping just in time for the holidays, okay? So, make sure to go to wayfair.com, that's WAYFAIR.com, and go make sure you can save up to 70% off some of those deals. and the sale ends December 7th. December 7th. Wow, losing my touch over here, man. Losing my touch. But the sale ends December 7th. All right. So go to wayfair.com where you can get up to 70% off for Wayfair's Black Friday sale. All right. So let's get back to the game. So we went over Brunson, we went over Giddy. Let's get into the X Factor and wrap up here, Will. So who do you think who's going to be the Bulls X Factor for tomorrow?
I kind of think for both sides, it's going to be the centers. Vucevic has just been
Hmm.
on fire shooting the ball lately. And I think the Bulls are really tough to defend when he's shooting the ball well because, as I was saying, like you just have to close out hard to him because you can't give him those open shots. When you do that, he can either put the ball on the floor and break defenses down, and now you're playing 5-on-4. But he's also just such a good passer that he's able to like really read the court and help the Bulls stay in the offense that they want to run. So I think he's just been really key. And I always wonder like so many Bulls fans are asking for one of those like Mitchell Robinson type of centers, rim roller, rim protectors that can just anchor an elite defense. But I feel like what Vooch adds to the offense of the team is really, I mean, it's almost unquantifiable. Aside from his individual stats of like how much easier he makes it for everybody by having to pull opposing centers away from the basket. So I think that's huge. And I think on the other side, the Bulls trying to contain Jalen Brunson are going to have to, stay with him, and that's going to leave Cat pretty wide open. I don't know how much pick and roll the Knicks have been running this year, but I find that to be a really challenging, action to defend with such an lethal 3-point shooter. So especially with Vooch not being an elite defender, an elite mobility guy to be able to recover to a Cat in a pick and pop, I think is going to be really tough for him. And then Cat can do a lot of that same stuff too in terms of attacking closeouts, putting the ball on the floor, creating and getting to the rim where the Bulls just don't have a lot of rim protection. Buzelis has been really good, but he can only do so much. So that's kind of my X Factor matchup.
You know, I like that you said that. I was, typically I just asked for yours, but I like that you said the centers because that is who I'm looking at. I'm looking at Karl Anthony Towns for the New York Knicks, and I like the center matchup in this one because it is interesting because they're both, they're both offensive driven guys. They're not really hardcore defensive players, but I do agree with Karl Anthony Towns as being the Knicks X factor for tomorrow's game just because he's had a rough start, man. And look, if Mitch doesn't play, then you got to rely heavy on the production that he gives you. And I would say that these two losses aren't solely on Karl Anthony Towns, but with what he was brought in here to do, being that efficient offensive scorer, him not being able to do that those last two games has made us lose games by like on the margins. And so the Knicks definitely do need him to step up in tomorrow's matchup against a hot Bulls team. So I'm going to go with Karl Anthony Towns as my guy. And I like that you chose Vooch. So yeah, the center battle, we went through the guard battle as a key matchup, the center battle being the X factors. I like that as well, man. So appreciate this. Well, I appreciate your time, Will. Appreciate you for
Absolutely,
hopping
man.
on.
Absolutely happy to do it. I'm glad the Bulls have a couple of games here against the Knicks. I think, like you said, it'll be a fun little playoff series light action. So, especially with the NBA Cup, I'm not, we'll see how that goes. The Bulls have a
I
new court this year. It's gray this time, not red. So, hopefully, that's a little bit easier on the eyes.
I mean, look, it's not going to be orange for the Knicks, so I'm right there with you. Before I guess I let you go, how do you feel about the NBA Cup? Are you a fan of it? You don't like it? What's going on?
Some people are like really angry about it for whatever reason. I just am kind of neutral. Like I think it's fun. I like that the teams try a little bit harder, especially towards the end of it, and when like a trip to Vegas is on the line. But anything that you can do to like make the NBA more competitive in the regular season, I think is a win. So I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm for it too. I do like the competitiveness. Just a few more years, and I feel like the chippiness will just start to, climb through the roof. But Will, once again, I appreciate you coming through. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
Yeah, CHGO Bulls, CHGO Sports on YouTube. We do a daily Bulls show, but we've got coverage for all the teams in Chicago: Bears, White Sox, Cubs, all of it. And you can find all my written work at allchgo.com.
Awesome. Well, once again, appreciate you for coming through. And Knicks Nation and Bulls Nation, I know you're out there tapping in as well. Thank you for joining in for another Game of the Week preview. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Salute to all the franchise channel members for coming through. Look, make sure to tap into all the content. All right. We got Court Vision back up and running. CP just did a great episode with Shaq. So make sure to go check that one out. Okay. There's a lot of great content here on the YouTube channel. So you're never missing anything. You're always in the know with the New York Knicks. So make sure to stay locked in and tapped in and subscribe if you haven't done so. Also, we got a newsletter, so make sure to go subscribe to the newsletter if you haven't done so already. We got a bunch of great writers over there creating great written content. Also, it's a good way to know any updates about this channel, our sponsors, watch parties. There's a lot of information over there, so make sure to go check that out as well. And make sure to support our sponsors, all right? Make sure to support DraftKings. Make sure you use that promo code KFTV to get, up to $300 in bonus bets and to get NBA League Pass for free for 3 months. Also, make sure to go to wayfair.com to get up to 70% off on some of the deals to improve your home, all right? So thank you all once again for tuning in. We'll catch you later. We out.
Yeah. One time for the